Marcus Turner, the owner of an upscale retail chain, went incognito at one of his very own stores without revealing his true identity. The store manager treated him with racially biased assumptions, and the next day, everything changed when the man returned, not as a regular customer, but as the influential proprietor ready to set things straight. Marcus peered out of his corner office window and watched Manhattan's busy streets unfold below him. It was a familiar sight from many years, yet somehow today, everything felt different. His business, a series of luxurious stores from New York to Los Angeles, stood as a tribute to years of relentless hard work, sacrifice, and determination as a black man in a field typically dominated by white individuals. Marcus's path had not been smooth. Born to blue-collar parents in Harlem, he had been exposed to prejudice early on. Even as a youngster, he knew his skin color meant others would impose unwarranted assumptions. Teachers advised him to be realistic when he spoke of his dream, to succeed in business, and classmates ridiculed his ambitions, convinced he would never overcome his circumstances. Yet, with the unwavering support of his family, Marcus pushed through the obstacles. He started as a young go-getter and eventually became a giant in luxury retail, all while learning that no level of success could fully hide him from racism. Despite owning a multi-million-dollar enterprise, people still looked at him with suspicion and scrutinized his wealth and status rather than celebrate his accomplishments. He had long anticipated underhanded, subtle discrimination, the kind masked by politeness. What hurt him most was witnessing his achievements and the empire he built, his sweat, tears, and persistence being exploited as a stage for the very prejudice he had battled all his life. That is why news about one of his store managers, Bradley Stone, hurt more than he expected. For several weeks, murmurs among employees and even some shoppers described a toxic vibe at one of his flagship locations in Soho. Multiple reports indicated that Bradley ran the store as if it were his own domain, serving only affluent customers while dismissing those who did not match his idea of a luxury buyer. The gossip never mentioned race outright, yet Marcus knew it was all rooted in racial bias. It always had been. Sitting back in his office, with his fingers steepled under his chin, Marcus recalled that he had built his brand on the principle that luxury was meant to be welcoming. Anyone, no matter their background, should feel at home in his stores. This was what set his brand apart from the stiff, elitist institutions that had long ruled the market. He had trained every employee to reflect that ethos. So, how could someone like Bradley slip through the cracks? Yes, there had been some complaints, but Bradley's sales figures were impressive. He had established connections with elite clients, generating steady income. On paper, he appeared as the ideal manager. Yet Marcus refused to trust numbers without first-hand experience. He needed to see the reality from the customer's perspective. Turning away from the window with his decision made, Marcus planned to visit the store, not as himself the well-known owner, but undercover, blending in as just another shopper. He had done this once when his business was new, gauging customer service in disguise. But this time, it felt different. This was not about merely improving service. It was personal. He had to confront the prejudice in his own establishment. Later that night, while sifting through his wardrobe for the perfect disguise, Marcus couldn't help but smile ruefully at the irony. A man who could enter any of his own stores and pay whatever he wished now had to appear completely different, just to be treated fairly. He settled on a simple outfit, a pair of jeans, a plain black hoodie, and sneakers. He left his expensive watch in a drawer and opted for an ordinary wristwatch instead. Standing before the mirror and pulling the hood over his head, a flood of memories overwhelmed him. The days when security followed him in department stores, when sales clerks ignored him before he made his first fortune, and when landlords turned him away because they doubted a black man could afford their upscale apartments. Those experiences had scarred him, scars that neither time nor money could fully heal. It became clear that this undercover mission was not just about Bradley. It was about challenging a long shadow of racism that had tailed his career, even when he believed he had moved past it. It was about dismantling the notion that a black man needed a premium credit card to belong. "Let's see how this goes," Marcus whispered to himself as he grabbed his keys and stepped out of his high-rise apartment. The Soho store was one of his largest and most successful locations, centrally. Located in Manhattan's elegant shopping district, it attracted a mix of tourists, socialites, and upscale locals. But lately, word had gotten around that it wasn't as friendly as it used to be. Arriving in the early evening when the city was still lively but the store was winding down, Marcus felt the anticipation build as he neared the entrance. This wasn't merely a store. It embodied everything he had built from scratch, yet upon passing through the glass doors, he immediately sensed an unsettling change. The atmosphere was distant, and the lavish decor, with its gleaming marble, floors and sleek displays in black and gold, seemed unwelcoming. Marcus wandered toward a case displaying a range of designer timepieces, yet nobody acknowledged his presence. Neither the security guard at the door nor the sales staff, preoccupied with a sharply dressed couple, offered any greeting. He browsed the watches quietly, feeling that familiar pang of invisibility, the very sting he had known since youth. Though not new, it filled him with anger all the same. Determined to test the service further, he moved toward the back of the store and picked up an expensive leather bag, pretending to show interest. Moments later, he spotted Bradley Stone, the manager, emerging from behind the staff area with eyes scanning like a hawk. Bradley was tall, neat, and impeccably dressed in a slim-fit suit, the kind of guy who radiated control and self-assurance. Marcus knew exactly what was coming next. Bradley's gaze was not on a potential buyer, but on a black man in a hoodie handling a $5,000 bag, and that was enough to seal his judgment. Marcus gripped the bag, feeling the smooth leather, the very bag he had bought numerous times for himself and others, yet at that moment it felt heavy with judgment. Looking up, he saw Bradley approaching with measured steps and a slight sneer playing on his lips. Bradley discarded any semblance of courtesy and strode forward, slicing through the luxurious air like a blade through tension. In Bradley's eyes, nothing about Marcus's clothing or his quiet confidence mattered. He was simply a black man who did not belong. "Excuse me," Bradley said sharply. "Can I help you with something?" Marcus, still holding the bag, smiled out of habit. "I'm just looking. I've been thinking of getting a new bag, and this one caught my eye." Bradley barely glanced at the bag, his eyes instead darting over Marcus's hoodie and sneakers, as if confirming his bias. "That's quite an expensive item. Are you sure it's within your budget?" he asked, with a tone heavy with condescension. Marcus felt the sting, but remained composed. Years of enduring such implicit racism had honed his ability to keep cool, even though it never became any easier. "I know the price," he replied evenly. "I'll ask if I need any help." Bradley stood his ground, folding his arms and leaning in as if to assert authority. "I just want to make it clear," he said, his eyes narrowing. "This isn't a store for window shoppers. It's a high-end place, and we expect serious buyers." Marcus took a deep breath, tightening his grip on the bag. "I know exactly what kind of store this is," he said softly, locking eyes with Bradley. The tension between them grew thick. Bradley glanced around as if seeking support from nearby staff. Marcus noticed the uneasy expressions of the sales clerks, watching silently yet failing to intervene. "I'm afraid I have to ask you to leave," Bradley declared in a firm, low tone. "We do not allow loitering, and if you're not here to purchase something, you're wasting my time." Marcus fixed his gaze on him for a long moment. This was not the first time he'd been turned away from a store. In fact, the moment echoed countless past experiences. But this time was uniquely painful. It was his store. The irony stung. He felt his blood boil and the urge to retaliate surge, yet he knew this was not the moment for rash actions. He had come to see the truth, and now it confronted him in Bradley's smug expression. With deliberate care, Marcus returned the bag to the shelf, straightened up, adjusted his hoodie, and gave a subtle nod, first to himself, then to Bradley, before turning to leave. As he walked out, he sensed the staff's eyes lingering on his back, their judgment clinging like a shadow, but he did not waver. "Have a nice day," Bradley called after him, his voice laced with sarcasm. Marcus almost heard the smirk behind the words. Outside, the cool Soho evening hit him like a slap. He paused for a moment, letting the tension ebb, struggling to resist the impulse to storm back in and expose his true identity, to watch Bradley's face change when he realized he had just ejected the owner of the entire business. Instead, Marcus maintained his composure. He was a businessman, and a smart one knew to wait for the right moment. Suddenly, his phone buzzed, a message from his assistant, Amelia, reminding him of a board meeting the next morning. Marcus smiled already, picturing Bradley's stunned look when he re-entered the store the next day, not as a casual customer, but as the chief executive. That night, as he sat at his dinner table, pushing food around his plate while Bradley's arrogant face haunted his thoughts, Marcus replayed the day's events. It wasn't just about Bradley, it was about what his behavior represented. This incident was more than one racist manager. It was a reminder that no matter how high he rose or how much money he earned, there would always be those who saw him as inferior. People like Bradley, who would never accept that a man like Marcus could be their boss, let alone the owner of a vast empire. Setting down his fork and wiping his mouth with a napkin, his determination grew. Tomorrow, things would change. The following morning, Marcus arrived early at his corporate headquarters, dressed sharply in one of his best suits, the smooth navy. Fabric perfectly complemented his tall frame, and his polished leather shoes shone with every step. He felt empowered, not just by his appearance, but because of the plan in motion. He had built his company from nothing, and no one, neither Bradley Stone nor anyone else, was going to take that away from him. "Amelia," he said as he entered his office, "tell Bradley that I will visit the Soho store today. I want him and his entire team ready." Amelia nodded with a knowing smile, not needing any explanation, since she understood that when Marcus was like this, something major was about to unfold. By midday, the Soho store buzzed with expectation. The staff had been told that Marcus Turner, the elusive CEO of the chain, would be making a personal visit. Bradley, ever the showman, had gone into overdrive to ensure every detail was perfect in an effort to impress the man who held his destiny. He had no inkling of what awaited him. When Marcus arrived, the change in the store was immediately apparent. The very same team that had ignored him earlier now stood attentively, their smiles wide and voices eager. Bradley assumed command in the center, issuing orders like a drill instructor to ensure every corner was immaculate. He still wore his slim-fit suit, maintaining the image of a polished manager serving Manhattan's elite. Yet when Marcus stepped through the door in his tailored suit, the atmosphere shifted. Bradley's confident grin faltered for a brief second, his eyes darting over Marcus's face with a flicker of recognition that he quickly suppressed. "Mr. Turner," Bradley said with a broad smile, extending his hand, "welcome to our Soho store. We've been expecting you." Marcus shook his hand, and an electric moment passed between them. "I've heard plenty about this location," Marcus remarked calmly. "I wanted to see how you all are managing things here." Bradley puffed out his chest, pleased with the CEO's presence. We run a very tight operation here. Our clients demand nothing but perfection, and we deliver. I'm sure you do, Marcus replied, his eyes surveying the store and noting the staff's sudden enthusiasm. But I had an experience yesterday that left something to be desired. I came in looking for a bag and wasn't greeted with the warmth I expected. Bradley's smile wavered. I'm sorry to hear that. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Marcus said firmly, locking eyes with Bradley. You personally escorted me out of the store. The color drained from Bradley's face as his eyes widened and he took a small step back, his composure unraveling. I didn't realize, he stuttered, as Marcus let a moment of silence deepen the shift in power. Now you do. Marcus watched as Bradley's expression transformed into one of sheer horror. The confident facade he had maintained crumbled before him. It was the very moment Marcus had anticipated, yet instead of feeling triumphant, he was weighed down by reality. This was not about proving Bradley wrong or exacting revenge. It was about setting the record straight for every customer who had been treated unjustly. Bradley's voice quavered as he struggled to regain control. Mr. Turner, I misunderstood, he managed. I made a mistake. I didn't recognize you and I shouldn't have treated you that way. Please allow me to fix this. Marcus took a deep breath and let the silence stretch between them, the emptiness of Bradley's apology resonating like someone grasping at a fading hope. He could have fired Bradley then and there, leaving him to face the consequences of his actions. But Marcus's goal was not punishment. It was to send a message. Here is what we will do, Marcus stated evenly. I won't simply fire you, Bradley. That would be too simple. If you leave now, you'll learn nothing, and you will just repeat your mistakes elsewhere. Bradley's eyes widened, a sliver of hope mingling with dread. No, you will stay, Marcus continued in a low, resolute tone. You will work here until the end of this month, and every customer you greet from now on must receive the same level of service you would offer a top client, all with a genuine smile, regardless of who they are or how they look. Bradley blinked in shock, and before he could speak, Marcus raised his hand. You are going to learn what it means to serve every customer with respect. If you cannot do that, then you will be let go, and I will personally ensure that no one in this industry ever hires you again. Bradley's face turned ashen, his mouth moved as if to speak, but no words came out. The heavy weight of Marcus's declaration settled over him, and after a long pause, he finally managed, I understand. I will do whatever it takes. Marcus nodded once. Excellent. Now, if you will excuse me, I have other business to attend to. With that, he strode toward the rear of the store, where his regional manager, Simone Reed, stood waiting. Simone, who had been with him since the very start, was a no-nonsense woman who had helped build this enterprise from scratch. She had observed the entire exchange, her arms folded and a slight approving smile on her face. Well done, she said. As Marcus approached, Marcus sighed and shook his head. I didn't do this for my own satisfaction. It's just exhausting dealing with this repeatedly. Simone nodded, softening her expression. You're right. But what you just did sends a clear message, not only to Bradley, but to all the staff and customers. This behavior will not be tolerated. Glancing around the store, Marcus noticed that the other employees still carried an air of nervous energy, watching him intently. He knew that this moment would resonate throughout the company. We need to keep pushing, he said firmly. This can't be a one-off event. I want to launch a company-wide diversity and inclusion program. Every manager and every employee should be on the same page about treating people with respect, regardless of their background. Simone smiled warmly. I've been waiting for you to say that. I'll get started immediately. Marcus added, and keep a close watch on Bradley. If he slips up even once, I want him off the team." Simone chuckled softly. "I doubt he'll risk it now, not after today." Though a small smile appeared on Marcus's face, he felt the lingering weight of the day. He had done what needed to be done, yet nothing could erase the frustration of repeatedly fighting such bias. He had spent years proving himself in an industry that doubted him, only to realize that no amount of success could protect him from prejudice. As he left the store that afternoon, the fading sun cast long shadows along the busy Soho streets. Passers-by were oblivious to the internal battle Marcus had just fought. To them, he was merely a suited man on the move. But to him, it was a powerful reminder that the struggle for respect and equality was far from over. Later that evening, back in his apartment, his mind still raced with the events of the day. He poured himself a glass of whiskey and settled by the window to watch the city lights shimmer below. Despite the sense of accomplishment, he couldn't shake the feeling that more work lay ahead. His phone buzzed with a message from Simone. "The outline for the training program is in progress. We're on it." Marcus smiled as he set the phone aside. This was not just about Bradley's behavior. It was about ensuring that no one in his company ever felt the same exclusion he had experienced. He held the power to effect change, and he intended to use it. The following day, the news of the incident had spread like wildfire among the staff. Bradley, now visibly humbled, took up his post at the front desk, greeting customers with a nervous smile. Word had traveled fast, and employees throughout the company knew that Marcus had personally addressed the issue. Their respect for him grew, and the message was unmistakable. This was a company that valued every person, regardless of who they were. In the weeks that followed, Marcus introduced the new diversity and inclusion training in every one of his stores. He even attended some sessions in person to ensure all managers grasped the significance of what they were doing. It wasn't a mere formality, it was to become an essential part of the company's culture. Almost immediately, employees who had once felt sidelined began speaking up, sharing their stories, and finally feeling heard. The training sessions sparked tough but necessary discussions about race, privilege, and bias, and Marcus could sense a shift in the overall atmosphere. Yet he was aware that much work remained. The fight for equality could never be resolved overnight, nor by a single man alone, but he had made his mark and would continue to lead by example, ensuring his stores became places where everyone felt welcome. Some weeks later, Marcus returned to Soho, this time casually entering the store without any pretense, plan, or disguise. Clad in jeans and a t-shirt, just like he was the first time, he strolled through the doors. This time, however, the energy was different. The staff greeted him warmly with sincere smiles. Though they did not immediately recognize him, they treated him as they would any valued customer. As he meandered among the displays, he eventually reached the watch section where a young sales representative approached him kindly. "Good afternoon, sir. May I help you with something?" she inquired in a polite, professional tone. Marcus smiled and replied, "I'm just browsing, thank you." While he wandered the store, he noticed Bradley still at the helm, albeit with a noticeably subdued demeanor. Bradley caught sight of Marcus. His face reddened briefly, but he maintained a respectful nod instead of panic. Marcus returned the nod and continued exploring. The change was evident, and although the memory of yesterday's event still lingered, Marcus was reassured that he had made a meaningful difference. The company had improved because of it, and so had he. Stepping back out onto Soho's lively streets, Marcus felt a deep sense of calm. He had built his empire to symbolize quality and excellence, and now it also stood for respect and dignity for everyone. If you enjoyed this story, I trust that the next one on your screen will also resonate with you deeply. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thank you, and see you in the next chapter.